I was trying to sneak a drink in between the intro song there. I got to swallow before I can talk. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Evan Growth live stream, episode 62. Today, we're going to talk all about how to sell Webflow. We've been on a tear with some of the sales stuff recently, and it seems to get good engagement. So we're going to dive deep. I think, what was it? 2 weeks ago, we did like the 5 steps to every sale. Today, we're going to dive into the nuances specifically of how to sell, like steps 3 and 4. Is what we covered. So anyway, before we get too far into this thing, let's F and grow. Okay, what is up, Joe?
Hello, hello. Ready again to talk about sales. We could talk about this every week if we wanted to.
Yeah, with very little stream prep and, not a lot. We could just riff for hours, I think, on this between the two of us. But we did do stream prep, and so we're doubly ready for all of this. So you're going to get the best of both worlds. Let's say what's up real quick to some of the folks who were in the chat here. What's up, Zach? Early bird text or message goes to Zach. First comment of the show. Victoria, what's up? Hello. Rahuli, Felix is in the house. Alec Pearl, hello. Edgar Antonio. Michael Collins is saying, excited for this one. Always struggle with the initial contact connection, looking for tips to get out of my own way. Cool. So we can talk about some of that. Christopher Coleman in the house. Hello, Tony Seats. Felix Means, how I sell Webflow. I sell the editor, the CMS, and client first. Finsweet Flex. We're gonna make that a trend, Joe. The Finsweet Flex. We gotta just get people doing the Finsweet Flex throughout the whole ecosystem. All right, Christian.
I see that. I can even see a dance forming around.
I know, Alex Iglesias. I'm telling you, get on it. I need the Finsweet Flex. I need to see that on Instagram next week. Eric Freeland. Hello, Lucas Machado, Daniel Brosnio, Dale Jensen, Daniel Cobb. What's up? Ezekiel's in the house. Jacob Lara. Hope your day's great as well. John Matisse, Aida, Maria, John. Wow, everybody is here. Hello, hello, hello. So many. Kayla, man, I can't even read them all. Penny, hello. Magdalena. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't get to all of them. Let's just jump right into the titles here. We got a couple announcements, I think, Joe. So let's take it from the top because we got a cool, the F and Pros thing is out, but we've got a cool event coming up tomorrow, right?
Yes, we do. Tomorrow we have our first pro-only hangout. This is going to be where we share inside information in Finsweet. We're going to share some new things we're working on. We're going to be talking about growth in general, what you can do to really take advantage of this entire pro, the pro membership that we have available.
Yeah. Yep. We're going to go over plans for like accountability group stuff. We're going to talk about the future of the pro plan. Just meet everyone, right? So this will be the first time we all hang out in person. So anyway, there's still time to get in on that. If you want, check it out. Finsweet.com/FN-pro. There's still time to get in on that. So next after that, let's see, we had a tweet. There was a tweet that I'm supposed to reference here, huh, Joe? What happened here?
A nice tweet. If you ask, maybe it comes true. And this one did come true. Sarkis says, is it possible to nest CMS collections within collections using attributes? And the answer now is yes. If you go to the CMS Nest page in the attributes documentation, you will now see a new item on that docs page that explains this new update. So yeah, let's go through this here in the directory.
So we're all directories and then the nest.
And you can type nest or click in through here. Scroll it down. Towards the bottom, we have a new feature and optimization update. Can you zoom in for that, please? Zoom in. Nice. Okay. So now you can multi-nest any amount of attribute CMS Nest implementations inside each other. This is going to simulate a collection with a nested collection, with a nested collection, with a nested collection, and so on. There's no limitations. So let's scroll down. There's a visual on this. And a little bit further down here, you can see this visual where we have our projects. Nested inside, we have our categories. Nested inside the categories, we have the services. And nested inside the services, we have the colors. So we are now able to do this nesting inside of nesting, and we can pull the reference items from that level, that the nesting parent. So this is really cool. Sarkis says he's going to build a calendar tool out of this. And I think there's a lot of very unique and special use cases for this functionality.
Yeah, this is, I mean,
very cool.
Let's just give it up.
Yeah.
Never fails. Okay.
And let's talk about the caching update also.
Sure.
This is now an update that is rolled out to all users. Even if you have implemented Nest 3 months ago, you still get this update. All past, current, and future updates will now have this optimization. Can you go back to the screen share?
Mm-hmm.
We'll look at an example of it. What this is doing is creating a cache system that will store the information about your nested collections. So let's look at an example with 100 items in a collection list. Each item has 20 items nested inside of it, and then each of those items have 10 nested inside of that. That's a lot of nests. And if we did that many nests without caching, it would create 20,000 requests. This is way too many requests. With this new caching system in place, now 100 plus 20 plus 10 is 130 requests. So each request is made once to that item page. We get all the information, we store it, and now we can go and use it on the main page with the main collection with the multi nested collections. So this is a huge upgrade, not only for future, but anybody in the past. If you have implemented Nest, you are going to see this improvement.
Webception.
Mm-hmm.
Inceptflow. Nope, none of it.
Nestception?
Nestception, yeah. Okay, nice. Maybe y'all can come up with a better one in the comments. I do like, what did Zach say here? This had me laughing earlier. He said pros in different area codes, and I just heard that. I got pros in different area codes, and the song just started playing in my head, except for with different words. Okay, all right, enough of that. I'm sorry. We'll take it back to professional stuff. Okay. So are there any other announcements? Oh, we had one more thing. Let's run through these. Colleen always does such a good job of looking at events for the week. So if you're interested, let's run through this tweet thread of hers. Check her out at Colleen M. Brady there at the top. Let's see if I can get these titles up here. Hello, titles. Are you not working? You said you were going to work, titles. You said you were going to be my friend all day today, that you weren't going to do this. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, there they go. Okay, so Colleen says we're going to be here today. Okay, this KP is hosting, let's see, a little fireside chat. So check that out, and you can see this thread. Victoria, maybe you can add this in the comment, in the description, video description. Okay, Connor Finlayson will be joining Grace on Grid and Melissa and Keith on the Webflow show. So I think that's probably coming up right after this stream, if I'm not mistaken. And then Pixel Geek, Flexbox for Grid on the next Webflow live stream on April 20th. And then Webflow Cafe is doing a talk about SEO. And that's a en español meetup. So if you're interested in Webflow in Spanish, that's the place to do it. And No Code Founders is hosting how APIs work and how to make them your own with No Code Backend. So that's interesting there. And then let's see, Webflow Party. So another Webflow Party, another Melissa Mendez, Edgar Allen. Let's see who's Felix is going to be on there, Felix Gonzalo. So lots of cool events coming up this week. You should be following Colleen Brady on Twitter anyway. Go do that. And I think that's it.
We have
extension.
There's an extension update. An extension announcement. And also, I will announce that next week we will have the attributes API live in the documentation. We are now packaging everything up. We're preparing it for launch. And this is going to allow you to safely and effectively write code on top of Finsweet attributes. So if you have a CMS filter or CMS load or CMS nest or anything in CMS, you will be able to go and do that with the API. And we're focusing on, I believe, load and filter to start. These are the most popular ones.
Nice.
So we're going to have some tutorials on that. It's going to help you really do anything with filter, including filtering from third-party applications.
Yep. Okay, great.
Great. And now extension announcement. We had an extension fix. There was a comment in the Webflow forum that a user was having trouble with Finsweet extension, that it wasn't removing the CSS styles of higher breakpoints. And we found that that was happening for a small fraction of projects, that you delete the styles, you delete the breakpoints, and the styles did not delete. Most projects did not have this problem, but now no projects will have this problem. And that is totally fixed now. If you're using the extension, you don't have to worry about it. If you have problems with those breakpoints deleting, you can go and remove the breakpoints again, remove the styles from the project, and then you can add the breakpoints back and remove them, and there'll be no problem. So we came up with a fix for that. That happened a few weeks ago. We just forgot to mention it, but we handled that fix, I believe, within 12 hours of seeing that report. So if we see something, we're going to fix it, and that's exactly what we did.
Nice. Okay, so let's get into it with no further ado. How to sell Webflow. We're going to start, as we typically do, with some disclaimers. Disclaimer number one is that we're all selling at different levels. We're all in different cities. We're all selling to different clients. We've all got different skills. And so as we generally do, we're going to break this down as it relates to sales kind of concepts and things that you can apply at any level. But obviously things may be different on your end. You know, you may be starting out in your career versus, you know, a 10-year veteran switching into Webflow from WordPress or something like that. And so two totally different sales cycles and kind of approaches to sales. And so just kind of know that, you know, that you kind of have to experiment with this. And that leads us into disclaimer number two. Joe, if you want to take that one.
Sales will require experimentation. When you first start, when you start growing, when you're at the next level, you have to experiment with techniques, with what works for your business, with what works for the projects that you want to take on, with the clients you want to work with. So you may have to try various methods, and they may not all work. But the point is, the ones that do work, you focus on those, and you continue doing those that do work.
Yeah.
So there's not one right answer. You're going to have to try a bunch of different ones, and that's totally natural.
Yeah, and early on especially, you know, I've seen people experimenting with monthly subscriptions, with fixed fee, with hourly pricing models, with maintenance plans where you can just call service on demand. Recently, inside of the F and Pro channel, we've been discussing this Design Joy subscription service, which has blown up. I don't know if you've been following any of that on Twitter, and it's like a monthly subscription service. And so maybe people will start experimenting with Webflow type services in the same way. So I don't know. There's lots of ways. And I think, like Joe said, as this disclaimer says, you should be open and flexible. And you should just find ways to get somebody to pay you to do some work. You know, like let's just skip over all the whole episode, too long, didn't watch. Just find ways to get someone to pay you some money, and then figure out what it is that did that and find ways to do more of that, right? And even if it's small amounts at first, one of the things we're going to cover is what would we do if we had to start over? So somebody has asked me that question on a stream the other day, and then again in the YouTube comments. And so at the end of the episode, we're going to talk a little bit about if I had to start over from scratch, and I'll ask Joe the same thing. So, you know, what we would do if we had to just kind of break everything down and start over from right now. So if you missed it a couple weeks ago, episode 60, we did do the 5 steps to every Webflow sale. And this is really the 5 steps to any sale in general. And so we're just going to overview those 5 steps real quick, which is basically introduction, a short story, a presentation, and you got to close the sale, right? So you got to gain my attention. Step number 1. Step number 2, you want to tell me a story. Step number 3, you need to gain my trust, build trust, etc. This is where you're making a presentation. We're going to start focusing on step 3 and step 4 today, which is gain my trust and close the sale. So step 1 is get my attention. Step 2 is tell me a story. Those are other things. Those are lots of people talking about those. We're going to focus on gain my trust, so making the presentation as a sale, and then closing the sale itself. And then step 5 is delivering the goods. And so if you're interested in kind of understanding those other 5 steps, check out that episode. Today we're going to start right at the beginning of building that trust, right? And so understanding the client. You know, you've got your portfolio in front of them. You've started the conversation. Now it's time to like get into the weeds a little bit, Joe. You're having those first discovery conversations. And maybe before we get into this, let's prompt the audience. What do you think? Do you have any sales tips? Do you have any secret weapons? Do you have anything you do when you're selling Webflow that you find to be useful? Leave that in the comments. And here in a second, we'll jump in and explore some comments from you all about your sales tips. But Joe, let's get right into it. Understanding the client, having those kind of discovery calls. Talk to me a little bit about asking the right questions, because that's what it comes down to, right? Step one, if you're doing the talking, you're not doing the selling, right? The more you're talking, the less you're selling. You want the client talking. This is therapist time for you. You want to sit back and be your Webflow shrink and get your tablet out and start asking the right questions, Joe. So how do you approach this? What do you, as you get into these first few interactions with the customer where they're like, hey, we think we want to work with you. Mm-hmm. What now?
Well, it's about building the presentation. And I think you build the presentation by asking these questions, asking the right questions. How do you know what to present to that lead if you don't know what they want? Mm-hmm. So you got their attention, they're contacting you, you have a sales call. How do you know what to talk about? How do you know how to solve their problems if you have not asked? So asking the right questions is going to set you up to talk about what they want to hear. They should be doing all the talking. I agree. It's like therapy time. You're the listener. And whenever you talk, it has to be really important. You have to only be talking about important things, what they want to hear. For example, if they have no interest in editing their site, don't spend 10 minutes talking about Webflow Editor. They are not going to care about that. So instead of just generally selling Webflow and selling the general greatness of Webflow, you need to ask what they want to do in Webflow. What platform are they on now? What do they dislike about the current platform? What are they looking to get out of Webflow? The more specific you can get, and the more you can understand about their goals, the more you can create this presentation that they want to see and they want to hear. So asking the right questions, it's crucial. If you don't do this in the sales call, the lead's going to hang up the phone and say, well, that was pointless. I don't feel any better or worse about this company. You want them to get off this call and say, this is the team.
Yeah.
We're going to take the other calls just because, but this is the team.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people get excited, myself included, in Webflow itself as a tool, because we are folks who build the web and we live inside of this tool, right? We're working for people who do this all the time. And we kind of get lost in, again, that superpower that we talk about as Webflow developers, where we can finally build all this stuff. And so maybe we get wrapped up in wanting to sell this value or that value or whatever's exciting for us. But when you're selling, you really need to frame this as coming through the customer's perspective. You are no longer important. The technology is often no longer important. The client very rarely cares about the platform unless they've had specific experience or unless they're coming to you specifically with a request for a platform. They got a legacy thing or whatever. If that's the case, well, you're probably not doing Webflow anyway, so whatever. The goal here, though, is to not get lost in the features of Webflow and to find what the trigger points are for this client. Right? What problems are they experiencing right now that slow down their marketing campaigns? How do they handle if they need a new page on the site? What's the process for going through that? And there's nothing better you can do to kind of connect emotionally with a potential client than giving them an opportunity to just vent to you. Especially somebody, if they're beating their head against development or if they're beating their heads against like all these different hurdles in their job, sometimes maybe nobody's listening to them and the system's just in place and they got to deal with what they deal with, and you can be that person, right? So literally just, pull up your little notepad and I'm going to take a little notes right here and just sit back on the couch and let them talk to you. And you'll be surprised the relationships you can build with folks if you just get them spilling the beans. And once you get them a little comfortable about one thing, that leads to another thing. And these questions, right, this flow of questions is how you guide the conversation. In a sales setting, you almost always want to be directing the flow of the conversation with questions. Same thing with a therapist. Again, you don't really want to be directing the conversation unless it's time to start taking a little bit of control where you get closer to step 4, where you're trying to actually make the sale. Right? Once you get towards the end and you've kind of presented all this, and we'll talk about this, you might want to start then directing the conversation towards positive or affirmative buying signals. So you might want to start saying stuff like, if we did this stuff, could we earn your business? Right? So that's where you start directing the sale, but that's towards the end. At the beginning, you really just want to be digging in with these questions. Oh, so if I understand you correct, what you're saying is this: it takes you a week to get a new page built? And you can like really just emphasize like, oh, wow, that's okay. And you can kind of just add a little emphasis on that stuff because you kind of put the pin in their frustration and you let it there and kind of let that linger a little bit sometimes. Like there's a common saying in sales that the first person to speak loses, and that always comes up like when you've made like a statement or you've made some kind of closing question or delivered some kind of value proposition. You kind of just want to like let a little bit of tension build in the air and then let them talk first. Let them bring up the point. And so I don't know, for whatever that's worth, asking those questions, this is where you learn to dance. This back and forth dialogue and learning to deflect, right? Someone might ask you, well, how much does this cost? Well, if you could start answering that, but that's maybe not what they're really asking. So you need to reply back with another question, say, well, it really depends on the complexity of the page. What are you looking to have on this page, or what types of sites are you looking to build? And so now you're not just saying, oh, it's $1,000 per page. No. And maybe there's a sliding scale there. And so don't corner yourself. Ask another question, right? Put them back on the defensive where now they have to give you a little bit more information. The more information you have, the better picture you can draw for them in the next step, right? And so, Joe, I don't know if I sparked anything else there or any thoughts you have on just asking questions before we get any further here.
Well, let's go right into now understanding those answers. You've asked the right questions. You have the answers. Now you have to understand those pain points. You need to empathize with those pain points and then figure out how to solve them right on the call. So if somebody says, I have trouble because it takes me a week to put up a new marketing page, say, oh, I've heard that before. This is a common comment that we get for people switching to Webflow. Let me open up a client site right now in this call. I'm going to duplicate a page, change the content, and show you how quickly we can create a new page. The person will be blown away. If it takes them a week to create a new page and you show them how to do it live on the call, they are going to really appreciate that. You have just solved their problem visually, and you can now set this up for them. I also love to say, hey, I've heard this before. I understand what you're going through because we've worked with this company, this company, this company, and this company who had the exact same problem as you. And now all those companies are on Webflow and they love it. And we're going to do the same thing for you. So understand those pain points. Even if you've never built, you don't have a traditional web development career and you don't know exactly what their process is, you know that there is pain in taking 1 week to build a page. So empathize with that, understand it, and ideally come up with that solution live on the call.
Yeah. There's nothing better you can do to validate the customer's decision to do business with you than to explain to them how beneficial you were to somebody facing the exact same problem they're facing in that moment. And easy. If you can show them an example of somebody else who's respected in their industry or in their field or even in a parallel situation, it's called like the Jones effect. It's like keeping up with the Jones kind of thing. And so people want that cachet, so if they see that you solved a problem well for somebody else, they're like, oh, that business is doing well. Like it takes a little bit of that. If you go back to the building trust element, it takes a little bit of that risk factor away if they know that you've already done these things. And so anytime during the sales process you can point to other things you've done and let that work do the talking for you, that's going to really help you build the value there and to build that trust. And that should, again, happen in that presentation phase for sure. I want to address just real quick, if we could, this comment from the Flow agency saying, I find that in advance of the first sales call, it helps to ask for a brief, one-sided document in plain English, just describing what they need. It helps to know something rather than going in cold. I like this process. I don't know about, sometimes it can be intimidating to just say, hey, send me over a blank document or send me over a thought. I've seen, and I had at some points like some questionnaires, some onboarding questionnaires that were a little bit more specific questions, because a lot of times the client doesn't know. They don't know how to have these conversations, right? You're the pro. Your job is to guide them for their conversations. This is why people go to therapy. This is why people go to a developer, because a Webflow developer or a website developer, because they need some guidance doing this process. And so we should be the ones to kind of guide them. And if this works for you at the Flow agency, I think that's great. I think other people can try other things that work for them, but somehow you want to broach that conversation where you're getting those needs out from them. If they want to do it in plain English, if you have a questionnaire, if this is a Loom call or a discovery phone call, however you do, I do like that point. So that's a good point I wanted to highlight there.
I agree with that. And it's also going to help you come up with any examples you may need. So it's great if you hear a problem, you know right away, I have a copy of that site in my folder. I'm going to go and open it up. But maybe you need a little bit of prep work. You need 5 or 10 minutes to find a site or create an alternate example to show them what they're looking for. If you get that information before the call, you can be more prepared to create that presentation, to ask the right questions.
Yeah. Yeah, Pablo's Cortez breaks it down real nice here. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. There's your sales flywheel. You know, we were talking about some of that. So again, going back to that other episode. So yeah, that's a nice point, Pablo. So, okay, so let's go back to understanding the pain points, right? The answers to the questions above should allow you to shape your presentation around the specific needs of the client. So all the time as you're going back, you're driving back to these things that you discovered in your questions, you know, as you're talking with folks. Oh, so you said X, so this is how Y will affect that as we're going through, right? You said it takes you a week to do this, and this was Joe was saying, let me show you how it can take you 5 minutes to do this. Let me show you how this workflow will change as you do this. And then you give them a little taste of that. You solve the problems right from the beginning. And so you give them a little bit of that, a taste of that efficiency. You know, what is it that, is it the page performance, right? Is their current site loading in 5 seconds, 6 seconds? Is it taking forever, you know, to load? And that's their pain point, because they're like, man, you know, our competitors page like loads like that. We want that. Okay, well, you go and you show them a heavy page load and you're like, boom. You show them a nice Google page speed score or page insights metrics of your last site, and you're like, oh, they'll start just drooling like, oh man, I want that. I remember when I was working with WordPress sites, like all I ever wanted was a site that loaded like in a second. I was like seeing these sites, and I'm like, damn, that's so good. And then over here, my WordPress sites were like, you know, playing the Jeopardy music in the background as they loaded. You know? And so, yeah, what is that pain point, and how do you bring your sales presentation back? We've talked about like the comedy process, you know, and a good comedic performance usually has like a tie back or a callback. You know, so at the end of the show, they'll call back to an earlier joke they made to tie the whole performance together. This is what you need to do now, right? You've asked the questions at the beginning to get your little callbacks. And so as you're presenting, as you're bringing the presentation up and kind of talking about what you're going to do, every chance you get, you should be pulling back to those little callbacks, to those little things that you discovered in that early phase. That's like, yeah, it's going to fix A. This is going to address that. This is what's going to address that. And next thing you know, the client is super excited, right? We all respond impulsively to emotional drivers. And your goal during the sales process is to build as much sales impulse as you can. And that's what you do. You leverage those pain points to start building that impulse, which then drives people to action. Right, so the more emotional connection you can get, the better off you were doing the little therapist shtick, and the better you are in your presentation, tying all those little things back to their problems. By the end of this, there's not going to be any other option but to do business with you. You know, if you're doing this stuff right, at the end of the day, when it's like, okay, so like, are we doing this or what? You know, like, when can we start? It's just that easy, right? It's basically like, so when we're ready to start next week, how about you? That's a close. You know, so Joe, anything I missed there as it relates to the pain points, and then we'll talk that into building. I think a little bit more about buying Build Your Impulse, and maybe jump into some of these comments here.
Yeah, pull up some comments. I'll make a comment about the excitement part of it. This is so important. That's one of the reasons why Finsweet.com has such a wild look to it and a very interesting effect to it, because the goal is to get the person excited before they even look at the content, before they even do anything. They start scrolling down that page and there's a little bit of excitement that is created. That same magic has to happen in the sales process. And yeah, Reimar, you said it all. It's just so important for that person to end the call and say, this is the team. I'm excited. I'm going to take these other calls later in the week because they're scheduled. I want to do my due diligence, but this is the team. That's what you're going for. And that only happens when the person's excited.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to bring up my little graphic here that we did the other day. Let's see. This one. We'll go full screen on that. This little guy. Remember, you're not selling the fireballs and Webflow. You're selling the customer with superpowers. You're going to keep bringing this up until you just like ingrained in everybody's mind. Right? And so when you sell, you need to put the customer into the shoes of their superpowers of solving all their problems rather than getting caught up in all this other stuff. And again, you do that by referencing all those little pain points and tying this back to the things that specifically, are relatable to them. Pierre is saying, where was it? I used to be really afraid of client calls because I was too concerned about proving that I'm good enough without even knowing for what kind of job. Then I realized the only thing that really matters is to ask enough questions to understand their main pain points and problems, which happen to be much less stressful than proving your worth. And then he finally wraps up here with, someone said amateurs try to show what they can do while experts simply care about diagnosing problems. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and this is a good final follow-up here. Would you trust your therapist if they started by spending an hour explaining you why they're the best choice in the market without even trying to understand the problems you're dealing with? That's 100%. I think the therapist analogy is the right. You kind of want to become their digital Sherpa. This is where the trust is. If you're going on a mountaineering adventure, if you're going to go climb Everest, your Sherpa is real important, right? Your guide, the person who's going to help you navigate that adventure. Your job as somebody selling websites, while it's not as adrenaline packed adventure as climbing a mountain, is to be that guide, is to be that trustworthy person that I know if I go and I'm climbing into this adventure and I get stuck somewhere, I'm with the person who's going to help me get unstuck. They know all the tricks, they know all the things, and your job is to really just get them to forget about that experience or the potential of falling and just focus on we're going to summit this mountain. And a good Sherpa will do that, right? A good Sherpa will make the climb easier for you. And that's your goal, is to become that digital Sherpa for folks as they're trying to get onto the web. This is what we do. And so we're used to being on the web all the time, but a lot of people don't do this. Maybe they have one website, maybe. As part of a business, it's not something that is so common to them. And so just remember that a lot of times this may feel like just business as usual, but for them, this is this is an experience. This is something fun. This is exciting. And the more you can do to get them excited about the potential of the website, the easier it is to sell it, the easier it is to get more money, the easier it is to kind of just overcome all these little objections and hurdles.
The analogies are really on point today. We have the therapist, we have the Sherpa.
That's right.
Zach says, clients will tell you exactly how to sell them while you're asking questions. Listen. Exactly. The lead should dictate the sale. They should create the sale, create the presentation. This is what we're talking about. So yeah, absolutely. Right on, Zach.
Yeah. This is a question I'll let you answer here, Joe. The Flow Agency saying, on that point about being their guide, what language do you prefer to use at Finsweet to describe your relationship with your clients? I like partner, but just curious.
We use client. That's how it's labeled in our database. That's how we talk to them. Hey, you are a very important client of ours. So yeah, we use client.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Last month, client asked about platform. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Joe.
Oh, no. Yeah, it was this one.
Yeah, asked about plowing. I will use for their project. 4 points made it. See my sample work. 2 safer, 3 easy. 4 I can control the design as a graphic designer. Do you have some thoughts on that one, Jim?
Yeah, it sounds like a good process.
Yeah.
If that's, validate yourself. It's a good move to use you as a person. It's easier and you control the design. Yeah, those are a lot of selling points for people coming to Webflow.
Yeah. Yeah, I would maybe be careful here. I like 1 because see my sample work, that's the biggest one. That speaks. 2, I'm not sure what you mean by safer. 3, we had a whole episode about calling Webflow easy, so I'd be cautious there because you maybe diminish the value of the work. And then I would say 4, again, going back to put it in the client's perspective, you can control the design, or we can control the design. Don't put it as like, oh, I as the designer can do this, because again, the client doesn't care that it's easy for you. The client wants to know that you can do the work they're asking you to do. So even just when you're phrasing stuff like this, remember to like put it through the lens of the client's perspective or what the value proposition is for them. So I don't know, just playing devil's advocate on some of those thoughts.
I was thinking safer as less security concerns
okay.
in Webflow.
Yep.
And I was thinking
Yep.
easier as in easier to edit.
Sure.
So
Sure.
it could go either way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I know we're
what you
dealing with
said
YouTube
exactly
comments
correct.
here, so there's like a character count limit and context. So
Yeah.
all right, Fast Eddie's 760 saying, how do you manage a client who asks for the moon, shows a site that they like that is way over the top? What do you do to reel them back in? Show them the sticker.
Yeah. Say, hey, if you can't do that type of work, say we don't do this type of work. If you're looking for this type of work, you would expect to spend this amount to this amount. Give them some estimated prices if you have them, or even send them the pages of some companies that could do this type of work, and they'll see that they are totally not in the right price range. And if you can do that work, quote them on it. Moons are expensive. Quote them on that work if you can do it and say, hey, we're able to do this for you, but it's going to require 4 people on the project. It's going to take about 5 to 6 months. And we're looking now at a cost of this to this. And the reason is this feature you asked for is very complex. This is not native in Webflow and requires these 2 applications. And you just explain why this is so difficult. And if you could put the price in, hopefully they are understanding of, hey, this is out of my range.
Yeah. Yep. I think the reality check is a good skill to have as a salesperson. And sometimes you need to just like, sometimes you have to be absurd with client. Like you have to fight absurdity with absurdity in the realm of clients. So if somebody comes to you with a 5-figure expectation and a $1,000 budget, sometimes you just gotta like, they're in the wrong ballpark. Right, so either you're not scrubbing your prospects properly, or like sometimes they just need a reality check. And so, like Joe said, show them what it's going to cost, show them what it actually takes. Tell them, yeah, we can get it done, but it's going to be X. What's your budget? Should we still be talking about that, or do we need to? And that's where you also show them a range. Like, oh yeah, you can have this kind of site that's at this range, and we've talked a number of ways about how you can deal with that. But I honestly think sometimes a little reality check for clients, but don't waste your time doing that. I remember one time, they'll waste your time. Listen, they will waste your time, people with dreams. I remember when I was doing video work, this lady came in and we went and met her. I grabbed the videographer friend of mine that I was working with at the time, and they were going to shoot this thing and documentary, and it needed to be good enough for Netflix and blah, blah, blah. And we spent, I don't know how much time meeting with this lady, going over specs, quoting shit. And when we sent her the proposal, she bought shit a brick. She's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like, are you fucking kidding me? You were telling me about the cameras you needed to rent and this thing like that. And when we sent her a quote, it was like $20,000 or $23,000 for, like 2 days of shooting and everything we had to do. And she's like, oh, the last video I did was like $1,500 or $2,000. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't come to us asking for a $2,000 video. You came to us asking for Netflix. You came to us asking for like, just the cameras alone, like the list of cameras is very limited. And so you have to rent different cameras and do different things. And we have to have redundancies and we have to have multiple audio setups. And we can't use the comedy club's little thing. We got to do all these other things. And so like They don't get it. So don't get wrapped up thinking and dreaming when somebody comes in and they're like, oh yeah, this fancy thing and that fancy thing. You want to really scrub folks. You know, you want to find a way to vet these prospects. And sometimes a reality check is really just the only way to do that.
I'd love to bring up a comment from Pierre asking a follow-up question to this. Pierre says, would they even care about the labor cost when explaining difficulty like that? Wouldn't it be better to approach it through the lens of value generated for them instead? Well, in this case, no. The question was specifically about somebody that has big, giant dreams that needs to be reeled in, that needs to come back to reality and understand, hey, what I'm asking for is not what I can do. It's not what I can spend. It's not the resources I can do. I don't need this. So if you provide the value for it, then you're spending a lot of time in that pitch. Like Reimar said, I'm sure that he created a ton of value for that person. You're going to have this awesome and this awesome and this awesome, and it's going to be ready for Netflix. That takes a lot of time, when really the right move would have been to say, hey, for all this stuff, we're looking at 20,000 to 30,000 per day, and shut it down right there. If that's way too much, you can end the conversation, or that person says, perfect, that's right in my budget, let's continue going. And if they are ready to do that, that's when you go into the value. That's when you say, you are spending this much money and you are going to get that value back plus more.
Yeah.
But I think first you got to approach it from a price if you know it's out of their price range.
Yeah. Kenneth, unrelated question. I know Finsweet used all kind of copyright material like Marvel, Heroes, Mario, etc. You don't seem to care about it. Am I missing? How can we use content like that? I know what you mean about like all of it, but this stuff is just fair use. You know, it's just memes. This isn't like sales collateral. We're not running advertising campaigns. We're not selling websites on the back of this. So it's, you know, nothing more than a meme in our book. So yeah, I don't think there's any real concern there. So Kyle Shivers is saying, officially changing my job title to Digital Sherpa. Nice. I like the title Digital Sherpa. Same Digital Sherpa. Such a good description. Great. Okay. This is a good question. Edgar Antonio's asking, curious how everyone presents as a Webflow developer or a Webflow designer.
Well, I like the term Webflow developer because I've always seen myself as more of a developer than a designer. If you have design as your primary skill, you can call yourself a Webflow designer. If you have developer as your primary skill, maybe you feel better as a Webflow developer. There is no right official answer here, but I'm also curious, what do you call yourself? Do we have Webflow developers here, or do we have Webflow designers, or both? Or do you change it based on the project you're pitching?
Let's see, Webflow developer.
Ooh,
Webflow
I hear a poll coming.
Designer. Yep, let's get it out there. And then okay, so we're gonna ask this, and then if it's other, leave it in the comments. So there's a poll now. We'll ask everyone in the comments. You can share your thoughts. What do you call yourself as a Webflow developer or Webflow designer? And we'll take a look here. Pablo Cortez hits it on the nail. Fair use allows limited use of copyrighted material without permission from the copyright holder for purposes such as criticism, parody, research, and scholarship and teaching. There we go.
I think that's parody.
What's that? Yeah, it's parody and teaching, and also like it's just fun and games. If we were like running TV ads or running like Facebook ads using Mario, like woohoo, running around talking about Finsweet's the best, that's a different story, you know? Okay, let's see. I'm just seeing if anything else comes in. Okay, let's jump back into our little notes here. Reference the pain points to build buyer impulse, I think is where we got lost kind of jumping into the conversation here. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because the client, again, going back to our copyright infringing material here, you want to paint this picture in the lens of the client, right? So are they a company that's going through a rebrand and they want to refresh from maybe like an older stodgy organization? Maybe, you know, some new partners have taken over and they want to like feel a little more young or a little more hip for their brand, right? So what's that lens coming through? Are you the designer for that? right? Are you presenting your things in a way that makes it feel like you can do that for them? Or are you, because they're a law firm, still staying a little stodgy because you think, oh, a law firm's going to want me to be like this? And so have you discovered that, right? And so those are the emotional connections where really understanding what the goal is of the client helps you throw these things in a nice filter and a nice lens that lets them see this in the best color possible for what they're looking to do. Same thing with like what's been holding them back. If they're looking to do a lot of marketing campaigns and they can't do that right now because it takes them so long to build a new page, or they can't just upload a CSV with all of their sales, keywords that they're doing and just instantly create all these landing pages. Well, showing them and removing that hurdle, or showing them how you can remove that hurdle, again, becomes that thing, that excitement that you should always be drawing back and pulling them up into, like, okay, it's time to do this business. It's time to go. These are the people, these are the folks who can elevate me to that standing, right? They've got this superpower that will give me, my business, superpowers. And people want that, right? Get their ego involved in the sales process a little bit. You want to, like, there's lots of places where you don't want the ego involved, but when it comes to spending money and getting a business owner excited, or getting a decision maker, a marketer excited, if I'm a marketing person and I'm talking to you as a web developer and you can help me hit my goals, who knows what that means to me, right? So if you can help me hit my goals, maybe I'm going to get excited. Now I'm going to go to bat for you with my sales team because I feel confident that you're the one that's going to help me hit my goals, right? And so now you have a teammate going to sell this project to the business with you, because you've made them your ally in the sales process, and so how you position yourself, the way you take all of that discovery you did in that questioning phase and apply it in this presentation phase is really how you get that, like, that sticky buy-in. That's where you just, closing the deal becomes a no-brainer.
And the requests and the needs of your leads could be so dramatically different from lead to lead. The more you hear their problems, the more you understand problems in the industry, the better you are going to be at addressing them. You may have somebody that is interested in editing their website. You may have somebody that's interested in fast marketing page creation. You may have somebody that is doing ad campaigns and they just want a template to be able to make fast pages, and they do the whole migration because of that. You may have people that lead with, my competitors have a better website than us. One of our biggest projects ever, the person came to us and said, my only problem is my 3 biggest competitors all have a better website than I do. Out of all of the people, I'm the worst looking one.
Yeah.
So change that. And that's the only thing we had to do. We had to convince this person, you'll be better than 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
So the more you hear these different requests, the better you are at answering them. And they all have a different answer. Someone that's editing their website gets such a different response than somebody who wants you to create something ridiculous to play with the competition.
Yeah. Yeah, we're hovering right at 97, 98. Come on, yo. We're trying to blow that air horn, okay? Let's
Come
stop
on.
playing. Juan Cardona is saying here, ever had any leads that understood the web a little and were skeptical about the no-code nature of Webflow? If so, how did you deal with it? Joe, you want to take that one?
Sure. The first thing I need to know is, what are you skeptical about? I can't answer that question until I get a response. And if the person can't answer that question, then they don't know what they're talking about. You have to actually have an answer to that. I'm concerned about not being able to edit the CSS file directly. I'm concerned about not editing the Oh, there we go.
Okay. Sorry.
Over 100. Nice. Not being able to edit the HTML file, not being able to natively add JavaScript files, whatever the issue is. Yeah. For every issue somebody has with Webflow, with every limitation, there is usually some solution to fix that. We can't do that, but we can apply attributes to elements like this. We can write JavaScript, and now it's the same thing as your traditional environment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need more to answer that.
I would even also say, like, maybe you help them understand what the no-code movement is, and you help them understand that the moniker no-code is really just a marketing term for the abstraction of what people are doing with code in a visual canvas. And I think we all should get really good at kind of articulating the value of no code in that context, because this is a stumbling block in a lot of places where people dismiss this because it's no code, it's not technical enough or whatever. Like, no. Stop with all that nonsense. This is code. It's just visually developed. And so I think the thing is to really help educate the client at that point of what's happening in this no code space and why that could benefit them moving forward, especially if their use case is not one that requires a ton of custom code. And even if it does, showing them how you can solve that is the right move. But I think in that case specifically, I think just a little education there would really help. Let's see. As soon as you add attributes, you're definitely a developer. Nice. Developer all the way. Webflow designer, website builder. Also use no code developer. My clients call me developer, but I think I'm a designer. Webflow developer and designer. Yeah, okay. Anshul, I feel it's better even for designers to call themselves web developers. People seem to take developers more seriously, so that's an interesting positioning. Web developer, web designer. That's a difference, right? If you're just saying web developer or web designer, that's a little different because I think, there's different expectations. Publicly, Webflow specialist, once I know what clients are looking for, may start speaking as Webflow developer. Yeah. What are you thinking there, Joe?
The last comment, can you bring that one up?
From who?
I already forgot the name. I think from Anshul.
Oh,
yeah, people take developers more seriously.
Got it.
You know what? I don't know if they take developers more seriously, but I think there is a notion of paying developers more than designers. I think this is switching very quickly. That this was true a little while ago, maybe a few years ago, but now I think there is a switch where design actually costs more money. Because now with all of the education for development, more people are picking up the skill. There's more availability for developers. It's not as rare and unique of a skill anymore. And when you're a designer, you're either a great designer or you're not. I think there's this level of creativity that you can't learn. You're just given it. You can become a better designer, but getting to that next level, it's natural. It's something inside. And now I think people are seeing that as the more rare skill. However, to our clients, they do pay more money for developers than designers, just because that is an expectation. If you're working with a technical developer, that person costs more money than a rock star designer. Right now, with our clients at this current time. But I really think that big switch is happening.
Yeah, I think the key comes down to really the creative solution. So if the more complex creative solution comes through design, and you're more creative at doing unique visual layouts, then clients will probably come to you for that. And if you're like, let's say you want to do some really crazy 3D shit, well, you might need a very specialized designer or developer to do those things. And so, again, I think that specialty goes down to, I think what we are heading into a phase where you can differentiate yourself more with a unique design style or with some kind of really stunning pieces of work and really allow you to set yourself up as like somebody who just does this really standout type of thing. And I think that's where design is easier to do than development in that regard. But I don't know. I think, like it depends on the client. If the client has a bigger need for one or the other, they might be willing to pay more for one of those two skill sets. Let's see. Kyle Shivers is saying, I think a lot of clients don't realize how much actual design goes into developing a website. I spent a lot of time in Photoshop and Illustrator while developing a site. Sure.
Okay. Interesting. Is that because you don't get assets? Is that because you don't get the full developed, the full design site? I'm curious, why you're spending so much time inside those platforms.
Yeah. Let's see. Spencer is saying we stay away from the design or development box and focus the description of what we do on client-based outcomes. We're digital marketers building comprehensive online presence for clients. That's cool. And that's like more of a niche-based thing because in that context, you're leading with digital marketers. And you probably, I would imagine if you're leading with that, maybe have some more results-focused sales tools. you're delivering on KPIs, you're delivering on conversions, you're delivering on other metrics that lead to them having trust in you as a digital marketer. And then probably the website becomes a tool for them to accomplish that job. So I imagine your sales pitch is probably shaped a little different than somebody who's coming at it as just a web developer who maybe doesn't do that marketing stuff, because we wouldn't get involved in a lot of those things from the Finsweet side. We specifically don't do a lot of the marketing stuff. And so, yeah, again, that goes down to positioning. And I think what your specialty is and focusing on, what you can use to drive the most value for your specific setup on this.
Absolutely. I'd love to bring up a comment from Pablo Cortez. Design is more expensive now. I recently developed a website for $10K, fair price for the job, that my contractor charged design and development for $92K. Wow. And then he says designing brands is where the money is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really agree with this, that if we needed to go find a new Webflow developer for the team, we'd have a very large pool of people ready to work as Webflow developers. To find equal level rockstar designer, this person is very hard to find. They're usually booked up for weeks or months at a time. And they're usually not willing to work for another agency. They're acting on their own because they can, because people are scheduled months in advance to work with them. So yeah, if you can design a brand, if you're a rock star designer, this is now going to be a skill that I think is paid higher than development.
Yeah.
And also when we're talking development, we're talking really this industry, Webflow development, front end development. We're not talking about back end developers for Amazon or system developers for Netflix. We're talking about our ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought we might get to more. We're gonna probably miss out on the last few chunks of our notes here. I think we might have a whole another episode on the back half of this, just with time and the number of comments that are coming in here. So maybe we can carry the episode on next week or something. Because we wanted to talk about letting the client come to you, and so maybe we can do a whole episode just specifically on that. And separating yourself during the sales process. So up until this point, we've really just talked about the sales process and kind of maybe step 3 as opposed to step 4. I don't know, I guess a little bit of the other one, but there's so much you can do to kind of separate yourself, which is what we're talking about here. You want to be the person that people come to solve a specific thing. They come to this place because fantastic design, or because they do membership sites, or because they build the best sites for roofers on the planet, or whatever it is. It's great to have one of those little things that, when you're dealing with this type of customer, like you're just the best in the business, and you can validate that. And so how do you separate yourself? Maybe that's a dedicated episode. How do you bring the clients to you? Because I see even here, Sky was asking, where to find these kinds of clients. Sky Brown was asking Edgar, let me see. Focus in Figma to Webflow clients. So it looks like they're talking about how should I approach clients as developer only? Do most clients have content design? Okay, so okay. So lots of people are making this transition right now too, huh?
They are. And your first step, Sky, is to go and put it on your website. Make your H1 in the hero say Figma to Webflow. That's the very first step. And you may find that different people reach out to you. If someone's looking for that service and they see that you design and you do marketing and you do all that stuff, they may not want to work with you because they're looking for Figma to Webflow. Yeah. So start by putting it on your site.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we underestimate the value of just being real direct. I got this advice one time when I was early on in the web career, design career. And it was be clear, not clever, and be different, not better. Like they're just two things you can like just always hold on to. Be clear, not clever, right? So in your headline, you might want to come up with some like visual software developer for the future of web branding strategies. Nah, shut the fuck up. Figma to Webflow. Like be clear, not clever. Like, dude, what do you, all this nonsense? Like just what? Oh, we take the easiest path from Figma to Webflow. Oh, what? Yeah. You actually told me something with that. All right. So be clear, not clever, and then be different, not better. It's hard to say like, oh, I'm better than some other agency for some incremental thing when it comes to web design. It's very difficult to compete against that, right? What do you mean better? That's so subjective, right? So you want to be different. Again, you want to be like, no. They build Finsweet websites. We want them. You know, they're the ones that are leading the charge. We want them. Oh, I went to their meetup. You know, they know what they're talking about. You know, oh, she's doing all the clonables. She's a template maker. Yeah, that's the person we want. You know, that you want that. You want some level of that. You know, differentiate yourself, not competing against like, oh, you know, like we have this also, you know, or we do this a little faster or just a little bit. No. Right? How do you differentiate yourself? And so those two things are really key when it comes to the sales stuff, I think. So, let's see.
Maria, I'm definitely different. Thanks for sharing. Nice. Yeah, it's important. You know, if I always have this vision if your lead is searching for companies to make their website, they may have 10 tabs open of all the companies that they're considering, all the companies they're going to reach out to and try to schedule a call. Of those 10 tabs, you can't blend in too much with the other ones because the first thing they're going to do is say, these are not as exciting. They all look the same and there's nothing here that's really bringing me in. So now they're down to 4 tabs. You just need to be different, to stand out, to make it, wow, this company is so much different than everything else I've seen, and they're doing what I need to do. Yeah. A lot of people appreciate that.
Think about how you make decisions in your personal life and how much more likely you are to make a decision if there's any kind of personal relationship with the person you're making the decision, you know, with, right? If it's a friend or if there's some kind of like, there's just that familiarity, right? There's that bond that you create with having some person. And so in a business world, in a sales world, you have to figure out, especially in the web world, how do you recreate portions of that relationship in a digital space, right? So what are you doing all along the sales process that builds that comfort, that builds that trust, so that when it comes time to make a decision, or it comes time to, let's say, trim some of the fat of the agencies they're looking at, if they're going from 8 to 4 or less agencies, how are you the one that stands out, right? How are you the one that says, oh no, that's the leader. Like it's basically them versus maybe 1 or 2 others, let's say. Because that's where you really want to be. You don't want to be competing against 4 or 5 people. I remember early on, like I would ask people specifically, how many other agencies are you competing with? Like how many other people are you just shopping this to 10 agencies? Not interested. You know, not interested. I got too much time. My work is like, I know what I bring. Like, okay, 2 or 3 people. Okay, I can deal with that. You know, but you don't want to get into these battles where you've got 10 people, 15 people at the table, and they're just, you know, like it's going to be impossible to stand out against that. And odds are you're not going to please the person who's doing that kind of work. The person you want to work with has 1 or 2 agencies they're itching to work with, you know? And if not, then you got to figure out how to get onto that. You know, if you're not getting onto those kind of lists, you got to figure out what can you do. And maybe that's the separating yourself, let the clients come to you. Maybe that's the next episode. We can continue this. So it'll be like a 3-part episode, 5 steps every sale, how to sell Webflow, and the next one, whatever the 3rd part of that series.
I agree with that you really want people that have 1, 2, or 3 different options, including you. However, I think most of those people start with 10 tabs, right? If I'm looking for some service or I'm looking for a solution, I'll just right click, open a new tab, everything that looks interesting. Then I cycle through them and I close out the ones that just don't stand up with the other ones.
Sure.
That you need to be able to stand up and not blend in with the others.
Correct.
So yeah, and I do recommend asking that question too. If you think the lead is talking to a whole bunch of people, be very aware of that. That could be a huge waste of your time. You could spend a few hours on this when really there's 9 other people that are doing the same thing. That's just too many people for a good decision, I think.
Yeah. And think of it like this. The client should be expected to probably put a little bit of time into this process too. And if they're talking to 10, 20, 30 people, they're not going to give any individual attention to your specific requirements. They're just kind of assembly lining this thing. right? And so you want a company that's going to commit to putting some effort in, as much maybe, if not more effort than what you're going to put in this early phase. Because in this early phase, you're the commodity, you're the thing they want, right? And so they should be, in an ideal world, courting you, right? Because if you're good at what you do, you're booked out, right? Look at the top people who we see in this industry all the time talking about, hey, I'm booked out for 2-3 months. I'm booked out for 6 months, right? And so your ultimate goal in this sales positioning is to get to the place where the clients come to you and they invite you to come work with them. You know, they're like saying, hey, how much do I have to pay you to come do this? We need you. Then you don't have, like, none of the other shit matters, right? You go straight from like step 2 at that point to step 5. You know, the sale's done. You're just, this is like they're just itching, you know, shut up and take my money kind of stuff. So that's really should be your goal, to get into that kind of positioning.
We have a follow-up comment from Renee asking about a previous comment that was made. So I'll go and read the previous comment. You can make a personal video where you go through the current site, or make a quick mock-up of the client site and send it to them on LinkedIn or email, where you go through your recommendations. This is an interesting concept. It's something that I used to do a lot. I found that when I did it cold, when I was outbound doing this, putting in work and doing a little bit of pre-work before speaking to them, it didn't work for a cold lead, outbound. Inbound, this is really what I love to do. I love to go through their current site, talk about what's wrong, maybe remake something in Webflow to show them how it can be improved. You know, spend an hour on this, really get to them. And that's great for people coming inbound. That could even be somebody on LinkedIn or Facebook that says, hey, I'm looking for somebody. This I see as more incoming, inbound. I'm looking for a website. Can you recommend any good developers? Jump right on that, get their site and film a Loom video, because you know the 10 other people that respond to that are probably not doing that.
Yeah. And I kind of have some hesitant thoughts about this tactic for the same reason Joe just said. Like, if you're just doing this cold, you could spend a lot of time doing this and not really get a lot of places. But if there's something there that, you know, again, if you have that hook, if you can find that emotional connection, if you can reference something, pull, and maybe it's not the full thing, maybe you just a little element or a little something. I don't know. I could totally see where you could show some value with that. Let's see. Really interesting question of your own perception. I am happy to take less money as dev only because good design is so inaccessible to me. I put designers up on a huge pedestal. Okay.
Yeah, you know, me too, Christopher. I'm right there with you because I'm not a designer. So it almost feels like this skill that I just can't reach.
Yeah.
No matter how hard I try, I know that I'm not going to get to this level, which is required for my work, for the work that I want to do.
Yeah.
So I see myself as a developer. So yeah, this is it's a very personal thing.
Yeah. Juan Cardona saying here, as a beginner, is it harder to find work in the industry if you want to focus on development only? I feel like if I wait until I learn good design, I'll never get started. All I want to do is build. Yeah, I do think it is a little bit harder to get started, mostly because it's hard to then get a portfolio that does the work for you and to get to the level where kind of the sales engine is moving for you. It's not to say it's not feasible. I would, in that instance, maybe encourage you to find some quality designers and pair up with some folks that do really top stuff that don't have a problem with you putting that work in your portfolio. Because that's the biggest thing at the end of the day. You just want to have some work that shows what you're capable of. And then you need to be able to find the right kind of clients who are willing to pay you for development only. I think what you may find as a beginner is that it's hard to sell development only just because it's hard to sell development only, period. You know, so it's like a different type of client that you're dealing with that kind of is willing to separate those two processes. So I don't know, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's harder to sell development only for smaller companies, for smaller clients. And there is an expectation that if you're new to the industry, if you're new to Webflow, you will be working with smaller clients. So yeah, the team up with a designer is excellent. That designer could be in the Webflow industry. They may not be in the Webflow industry. You can manage the clients, you manage the development Somebody else manages the design.
Right on. Okay, and we're gonna make a liar out of us because I said that if we had to start from scratch, we would talk to this. This guy Steve asked me or asked us in the YouTube comments, and then somebody asked me the other day. I don't remember what it was. I was on an interview or something, and I wasn't real happy with my answer, so I wanted to take another swing at that. But I think we're well over time to get into any of that. So again, we'll push that off till next week. We'll continue to be continued here on this conversation. If you are interested, I assembled a playlist with all of our sales episodes. So all of our growth episodes. If you go to, let's go here. Let's see if we can find this real quick. If we go to our channel and then we go to playlists here and how to sell Webflow series, we basically put all of the top playlists or all the top episodes over the last year and a half about sales. So if you're itching to dive deeper on this, if you want more on this topic, how to sell Webflow here, list the 5 steps to every Webflow sale, how to make money with Webflow, overcoming common objections. So this is like the value of Webflow. Is Webflow worth it? How to sell more websites. Any of these are good to dive into, and they're all just robust discussions about these same topics. Interwoven between all of them is how to build leads, like how to price your Webflow projects, how to sell 5-figure websites, how to grow your Webflow web design business, how to build a portfolio that stands out. So there's so much good stuff here that I would encourage you all to go back. I'm thinking we've got somebody working on like some supercuts for these edits. That'd be interesting to take these and do like a sales supercut with just all of our sales content, and maybe that turns into, maybe we don't have to record anything new, Joe. Maybe our sales course is already done in those 12 or 15 episodes we have in there.
Probably can be, yeah.
Right.
We've just talked so much on this topic. And I don't think you can stop talking about it. There's always a different way to approach it, and there's always a different way to think about it. So, of course, there could be some repeat content, but really, I feel like we talked about new things today, right? Even with all those sales episodes in the past. So It's an amazing part about sales.
Yeah, I think that's the fun of it. To be honest, I think that's the fun of the sales side of thing. For me, that's what always excited me about sales. Like, even though there was the repetitive nature of kind of doing the same thing, you were always dealing with it in a different context. You're always dealing with somebody new. And there's something, if you're like a analytics person, if you're a data person, it's hard to kind of quantify specifically how this works in the relationship field, but you can kind of nerd out on dissecting the buyer persona that you're dealing with, right? Is this somebody that needs just the facts? Is it somebody that wants a little bit of the details? Is it somebody you got to get into the weeds with? Or is it somebody that wants the high level view, right? Like assessing that and understanding the persona of the person you're dealing with, and then learning to adapt your sales pitch to fit that need or to fit that customer specifically is an art. Doing this sales thing is an art. And most of us are good at the actual art of this stuff. I think a lot of people in the space are good at creators, or they're good at design, or they're good at development, but maybe you're not so good at those personal, skills, or the sales skills, or the relationship skills. And that's one of the reasons we like doing this stream, is to share some of that and figure out how to help folks like actually turn these skills into a business. So go back and check out some of those episodes. Again, there's a ton of content and a ton of value there that everyone, I think, put that list in the background and just fall asleep to it. You'll wake up selling a lot more sites. Some subliminal Webflow sales training.
And I will copy that to the group here. And there you go. Check out that playlist, review it.
And the links are all in the description. So not only is the playlist in the description, but also all the individual episode links, and then other links. So if anything else we mention on the show, those should be in the description too. So let's take a look at the last couple comments here as we climb out. Yeah, Dale, that's right. This topic never gets old. Always something to consider for sure. I think Joe and I could probably do like a 24-hour marathon on sales and not run out of stuff to talk about. John Livingston. While most work isn't a cold outreach, I have targeted companies I believe I can prove my value to. The secret is showing them this value. Did not go into detail until I had their attention. Typically, it's highlighting what's wrong with their site and ways to improve it. From one client, I have over 450K in billings due to a cold email. There you go. That's a lot. If you can catch their attention the right way, and if you sit that hook, it's like fishing. You know, like two people could be fishing on the same boat, and somebody catch a little guy like this, and the other one catches a freaking 40-inch tarpon or something like that. You're like, holy shit, what? And you're using the same bait. Whatever. Like, it's just but you got to bait the hook. You got to be out there fishing, otherwise you're not going to catch anything. So nice catch there, John. And yeah, it's a testament to there's opportunity out there all over that maybe John didn't see that or expect that as he started. Maybe that was a small deal, and then it evolved into a bigger deal over time, and you never know where a client will land you. So let's see, anything.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for all the positive comments. There's a bunch of people saying great show and thank you. So yeah, we really appreciate that. Give us a like on the video if you have not already. This helps YouTube show that people like it, and it advertises it to more people.
Nice. So that would help us. Okay, Penny, this is good. We can make a note of that. That gets you a client personas. We should take, I know Joe, you shared with me one time like a big doc on sales, like sales training stuff as related to Webflow. Yeah. And I got literally pages and pages. We should figure out how we do like we should do like a marathon week of just sales stuff.
You should.
Okay, thanks everyone. We're gonna wrap this up. Let's effing fish. There we go. Zach. Let's see. Lucas Machado, great show as always. Edgar's the one with the let's effing fish. Okay, Scott Humphrey, late to the party, but enjoy the discussion. Great. Thanks all. Hope to see you Community Pro meeting tomorrow. Yeah, just a reminder, one final reminder, all the pros, we'll see y'all tomorrow. You should get an email later today with the final confirmation or right before. I don't remember what we scheduled. I know we sent one out. Maybe even yesterday. Okay, very much got lost listening and reading the chat. Took some amazing notes. Great. Okay, share it with like Joe said, share this video with a friend. Make sure you leave a like. We really appreciate that, and it does really help YouTube distribute the content here. Oh, and at the end, for anybody who's kind of listening here, I checked our podcast stats. Our podcast is kind of popping too a little bit. Like it's not
really?
It's not crazy, but yeah, it's like more than I thought.
What do we have?
It's like a few
Can
thousand.
You share them?
Just like a few thousand so far. But we haven't really promoted or told anybody about it. It's just kind of like out there floating around. Yeah. So,
and it's relatively new compared to the entire series.
Yeah, and I also saw something the other day that said like the average podcast gets like less than 50 listens per month or something like that. 50 downloads per month.
Huh. Okay, so then we're doing pretty well.
So we're probably in the top 10% of podcasts. Literally, based on our stats, we're probably in the top 10%. Now it gets real steep in that top 10%. It gets real steep. But Pablo Cortez, you guys have a podcast. It's the same episodes as we do on the growth stream. So it's all of our growth streams. We've just stripped the audio and put them on Anchor, and they're available on every major podcasting platform, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, basically everywhere you can get podcasts. You should be able to find it if you look for the F and Growth podcast or Finsweet, any of that.
What time is the Pro Hangout tomorrow?
Noon. Same time as the stream.
Noon Eastern, same time. Okay.
Yep. The future X Finsweet collab. Let's make it happen.
Nice.
We're probably a couple thousand YouTube subscribers short of a collab with Chris Doe. We're going to get there. The Joe Krug experience. There you go. 3-hour podcast, just Joe Krug monologuing.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone. We appreciate you all. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you Thursday. We've got some fun stuff Thursday, Tuesday, next week. Just whatever. Just show up at noon whenever we go live. Okay. Otherwise we'll send somebody to like disconnect your Webflow account. Okay. Bye. Okay.